This is how we like to do it.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back, unit family, to our channel. Today I'm coming at you with another video. I feel like I butchered that. As you can see, Kristen's kind of not here to do the intro, so yeah, I'm gonna do that again. What's up guys, it's Kelsie here, and I'm kind of doing this alone. I'm actually going to be telling you guys all about my testimony from being a sneaky backsliding PK to being called into ministry and walking my daily life with Christ every single day, sacrificially, as hard as it is. So yeah, this is gonna be pretty long. I'm not gonna draw all of the details because I kind of feel like you guys can kind of fill those in, and some of the details just like kind of don't matter. So yeah, bear with me because I've never actually shared my full testimony with someone before. So I'm doing this for the first time on camera for YouTube. Like, that's freaking crazy, right? Like, I've told Kristen all this stuff, so that's completely different because, you know, that's bae. So it's easier to share like all of that history and everything with someone you love, like your husband. But yeah, I've never done this before for anyone else, so this is different. I know, like, you're probably wondering, like, wait, what do you mean you've never shared your testimony? So I've never shared the full extent, like, all together. Usually, like, when you're ministering to someone, you guys know, like, it's usually like a minute-and-a-half elevator pitch, pretty much, or 30-second elevator pitch to basically like be relevant to the person, to be like relational. So you kind of just share like parts of your testimony. You never do like the full extent. So yeah, bear with me. I'm gonna start with prayer because I really feel like doing this will definitely ease my nerves, and also will prepare the receiver to receive it. So bow your heads, you better be closing those eyes. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this opportunity to share my testimony. God, I'm asking you to please give me clarity in words. God, I'm asking you to please like touch the receiver on the other end, that they're receiving this in love, God, and that it reaches whoever that it's supposed to reach. I have no idea how my testimony is going to affect whoever's listening to this, but I pray that in all things that it gives glory to you and that it leads them to wanting to know you more, God, and just to committing themselves to you. I thank you so much for the freedom that you've given me in sharing this, and I'm claiming now that whoever's going to be sharing their testimony after this, that they are no longer bondage to those secrets that they've been holding within themselves. They're no longer bondage to the testimonies that they've just been afraid to share because they've been afraid of shame, or being afraid of losing influence, or being afraid of just everything that the world could basically put on you. I thank you, Lord, that you've given me the spirit of liberty and freedom in this video. And yeah, in Jesus' name I pray, amen. So let's get right into it. So I'm gonna start my testimony basically from high school and beyond, but before I actually get into it, I'm gonna give you guys like a brief synopsis of how my family worked, because how my family is designed has a whole lot to do with some of the choices that I made and my perspective growing up. So yeah, let's get into that. So I grew up in a pretty small town. It's not as small as like what everyone thinks. It's the hub between Sacramento and LA and Fresno and LA. It's Bakersfield, California. And there are some pretty dominant families pretty much within the community at large, and especially within the Black community. There are some very dominant families, like where everyone knows who you are. And my family, the Edwards family, actually happened to be one of them. So, and it's not because of like me or anyone else. It's really just because generations of our family have been like within Kern County forever. So everyone just knows us, even outside of like the Christian faith. People just know us. Like, we're very recognizable by our huge noses, yeah, the eyes, all of it. The sleepy eyes, like you guys see my bags, those are pretty noticeable, and everybody in my family has them. So yeah, so everyone kind of like just knew our family. It's just the icing on the cake that my parents happened to be a pastor and a first lady. And then on top of that, within like my peak years of high school is when my brother actually started rising on YouTube and like started becoming like super famous. So it was like pastor, wife, Kevin's little sister, and on top of that, I am number 4 of 6 kids. So there are 3 ahead of me and 2 below me. So I'm kind of like the middle child, but I'm actually like I have like the firstborn syndrome because I'm the oldest of the bottom 3. So it's like the top 3 moved out and then I was like there. So I kind of have like the firstborn syndrome too, on top of being the middle child. So I grew up basically in the shadow of being a PK, your brother being super famous, and then your sisters and your brothers like all being older than you, and they all have like their own like identity within the community. So then like you kind of grew up being so-and-so's little sister as well. So yeah, Kevin's kid, Sharon's kid, the like part of the Edwards family, the PK, the little sister, just so many different identities, so many different roles that pretty much everyone faces. I'm pretty sure like you can identify with what I'm saying like in some aspect. So with all of that weight on your shoulders, all the weight on my shoulders, I kind of grew up with the perspective that I had to basically not necessarily like put on a front, but you don't want people to see certain things about your life because everything that you do affects everyone else around you. So you kind of have like, I didn't have like the liberty to make the mistakes that most teenagers did without it reflecting my parents in the pulpit. And I didn't have the liberty to just like do everything that everyone else was doing because one, I learned those mistakes from my older siblings. My older siblings were a little crazier than I am. I can say that because they're not here. So I kind of like guarded my image pretty much, and I only did things in secret, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So from high school on, my life was pretty much lived in the public eye, but my sin was or not necessarily even sin, just the things that I was doing that wasn't necessarily a great representation of my family or Christ, for instance, were done like in secret. And there's so many Christians that actually do this that we don't like really realize how much bondage we're actually living in because we choose to do those things in secret. So high school, I was the typical high schooler, you know, just living life, you know, just not thinking about anything else besides like the moment. I've always been very dedicated to academics, so I never slipped with grades or anything like that. I've always wanted to escape Kern County, Bakersfield, California, everywhere. I just always wanted to escape, so I was pretty on my grades. I had great friends, my crew, like I seriously I can say that I don't think anybody was touching us in our city. And definitely that's a biased opinion, but hey, shout out to my girls because they know who they are. I can say I wasn't a bad child. I was a very smart-mouthed, athletic, try to do things sneaky because you don't want to get caught type of thing. I was that kid. So I wasn't like sexually active or anything like that. Like I actually waited until marriage to actually have sex. So I was a virgin like all throughout high school, all throughout college, and you get the point. So I was doing other things. So I had boyfriends, I went to parties, I basically did things that everyone else was doing, but I lived with this constant conviction because of my upbringing. So I was raised in church every single Sunday, every single Wednesday, every single service that you could possibly think of, my family attended. And it's because my parents were the pastor and wife, but it was also because my parents were instilling in us principles, and they were teaching us at a very young age to like follow conviction and to listen to what God has for your life, to basically walk in purpose and to always be upstanding. So my parents like basically were teaching us righteous living, but you know, like when you're a teenager, you're not really caring about being righteous per se. You're more so just trying to live in the moment because you'll pretty much never get those teenage years again, like the YOLO life pretty much. I want to tell you now, if you are a teenager and you're listening to this, YOLO, I get it, but it's not necessarily always the best decisions that you'll make when you're like operating under the assumption of YOLO, because you don't only live once, you're going to be living again. That's a whole different story. So take care of your soul pretty much. Don't do sinful things that you already know like you're not supposed to be doing. So I was basically doing everything that every other high schooler was doing, aside from I wasn't like smoking or anything. Yes, I actually did drink. Like I wasn't like a drinker or anything, but I tried it, didn't really like it, so I didn't really engage in that. I did all the rebellious things that I was taught not to do just because I wanted to try it. I was kind of like, you know, like the middle child. Most of the time we just want to just try things just because, you're told not to do it because you watch someone else like suffer from it. So it's like, I wonder if that'll happen to me. Yeah, that was like my experience with drinking. So I tried drinking at a party, didn't really like it. So it was just like, that's not for me. I've never done drugs before. I've never wanted to even try doing drugs. Like, weed stinks to me.
I've seen like so many people like just like look like, I don't know, their whole image changes when they do drugs, so I just never want to try that. And drugs, like, people were like popping pills at my school. Like, I went to like one of the uppity schools, so it wasn't necessarily like all of the hard things that you see. It's always like the pills that were like going on in our school. So I wasn't really doing that.
Let's just say my entire high school life was really just geared in like in what my friends were doing and what I thought was cool to do. So I wasn't doing everything that everyone was doing, but I was doing enough to where my conviction was so strong that when I'd get done doing it, I'd go home and I'd just be like, oh my gosh, like, God forgive me, I totally jacked up, but I'm gonna sing to on Sunday in the choir, and then I know that you're watching, and I know that you've already died on the cross. Let's just say that when you're a Christian kid, you use that cop-out more than you actually realize. So because we know that Christ died for us and that all of our sins were paid for on the cross and that there's no condemnation in him, we know that like when you're growing up, you're raised in it. So sometimes you kind of milk that cow, you know, you just kind of use it and abuse it. And you start to do things because you know that you're covered by grace. So I was actually doing that until I actually came across a scripture in the Bible that was saying like, when you do sin and you know that you're doing wrong, that you're actually going to be whipped with many stripes versus those who like don't do it. So that kind of changed my perspective like later on, but up until that point I was just doing whatever pretty much. I don't want you guys to think of me like as like a super wild child, because I was still like the PK of the group. Everyone still considered me the PK. As much as I was trying to fit in, people were still considering me the PK. It's crazy how that worked out, because I don't even know. It's like God was literally protecting me from myself. He was protecting my image, my influence from myself. Even like I can recall now, like when I'd be at parties and like of course like I had to ask my parents if I can go, but it was always like the dad said if I ask you, like it's okay. Even though my dad didn't say it was okay, he just said like go ask your mom. Yeah, I was like super sneaky and I know how to manipulate things. So I got away with doing things that, yeah, my parents probably did not okay for my older siblings. So I'd be at parties and people would be like, what are you doing here? Or like, do your parents know that you're here? And I'd be like, yeah, they know like I'm here, but they know to a certain extent. So just like keep that on the low. Or like when I'd be dancing with my boyfriends or dancing with my friends, they'd be like, Kelsie, like I didn't even know you know how to dance. Like, yeah guys, I know how to dance. I watch MTV and BET just like you. Like, yes, I know how to pop, lock, and drop it. Like that was the song then. I know how to do the, you know, what does that mean? Me in the trap is going down, or yeah, all of that stuff. I know how to do the Soldier Boy, all that stuff. So it's kind of just like people like think that because I was a PK that I wasn't exposed to like the normal teenage things. So it was like I was making a point to prove to people that even though I was a PK, that I still had like my own identity and that I wasn't gonna be like super judgmental to you because I understand like the perspective that the teenager is coming from. It was just so many different points that I was trying to prove until I just got tired of proving them. So when I was 17 years old, I just like reached a point where I was just like so tired of trying to prove things to people. I got tired of living with that constant conviction of knowing that what I'm doing isn't necessarily sin, but it's not the greatest thing in the world to represent my Christ-like lifestyle that I was trying to portray. And knowing that on the other end, like I never want my parents to walk in on what I was doing. And then knowing that the people that I was like hanging around, I'm not talking about like my friend group, but like, you know, the cool group, I don't want to be like that when I get older. So I kind of just like matured a lot faster than like a lot of people around me. So I kind of just like let that lifestyle go. I prayed this prayer to God and I was just like, God, like I need you to expose everything around me, because right now I kind of feel like I'm trying to prove myself to people who don't necessarily care about me. They don't have my best interest at heart. So while I was praying that prayer, I was just like, God, like, just expose everything. Show me things, like, embarrass me if you have to, because I know, like, I hate embarrassment. So this entire image that I built of myself is to protect myself from embarrassment. So I need you to just expose me, God. I need you to expose, like, the people around me, expose all of the traps that they're setting for me, expose all the haters, expose it all, like, expose the heartbreaking things that are gonna change how I look at people that are very close to me. So I prayed that prayer. Sure enough, y'all, literally like the next week, I had like one friend. I kid you not. Like, I was like around a bunch of people, but it was like just one person that God was just showing me, like, this person is like probably the only person that's like for you right now. Well, actually 2 people, but one person in specific, like in high school, that was experiencing life with me at that age. And funny thing is, to this day, we're still best friends. Like, we're still sisters. Like, it's so crazy how God set that up, but she was that person for me. So fast forward a little bit, I ended up meeting Kristen in between November and December of 2010 at the time that I was 17. So he had just like rededicated his life to Christ. I had just rededicated my life to Christ. And it was just like we were both like super friends and just like being accountable to each other, like just telling all of like the deepest parts of ourselves like to each other. And we ended up like growing on each other. You know how like you start off as friends, but then like it's innocent, and then all of a sudden like you're just like, oh my gosh, like I can see myself marrying you, or dang, I want to have your babies, man. Like it was all of that kind of stuff going on. Love letters, like all type of stuff, you guys. Like it was just crazy. So I ended up rededicating my life to Christ at 17, and then like from there on, I've just been trying to be consistent. Now, I say that to say rededicating your life does not promise that everything is just going to be uphill, and that when you dedicate your life to Christ and like you actually mean it, and you've confessed, and that you repented from your ways, and that you separated yourself, and like you're just trying to really be this upstanding Christian, that does not promise that the enemy will not attack you, that you will not fall into temptation, because you definitely will. And that does not mean that because you turned that those things won't be attractive to you anymore. Definitely those things will still be attractive for, like, of course, the beginning like phases of it, because it's not like the taste is just gonna get like slapped out of your mouth unless God works with you like that. But for me, that wasn't my testimony. Those things were still attractive. I was still a senior in high school. People were still going to parties. There was still just like a whole lot of stuff going on that I was still attracted to, because I was still at that YOLO, trying to escape that mindset, I guess you can say. So yeah, I definitely still fell into temptation, and it was like an uphill battle, and it's still an uphill battle, and that doesn't change for anyone. If you can show me any Christian, anyone who has like is walking with Christ closely, who is not experiencing fighting off temptation or falling victim to sin in some way or another, like they need to be in heaven already. Because they're acting like Jesus out here. Even though they may not tell you, people are still experiencing things. So like for me, after high school and everything, like I wasn't around like those same people or anything. I went through like the 4 years of college, like student athlete, working full-time, dating Kristen, just basically doing like the college life outside of the college life. Like, you know, like when people think like, oh, I want to live the college life, kind of like you want to live the high school life. I tried to escape that as much as possible. Now that's not to say that I didn't like fall short at some time to where I felt like I was living my life too serious, or there were times where I broke up with Kristen. People didn't know that we were broken up, because I learned at a very young age, you never tell anybody your business to where they can talk about you or like get in or creep in or anything like that. So I've always had like this veil in front of me in the public, and I lived that way in high school, and I also did that with our relationship, and I still do that with our relationship, because
nobody needs to know what's going on in this house. You know, can't let y'all know, because y'all might try to come steal my man.
But no, seriously, in college, I actually broke up with him like 4 times, I think, like over the 4 years, because I just felt like I was too serious, and that I was like not allowing myself grace to make mistakes, or grace to live and be
18 years old, 19, 20, 21.
you are not missing out on anything when you choose to live your life for Christ at a young age. I want to encourage you, like, if you're at a place where, even if you're like 13 years old and you're watching this video, you do not have to experience everything. You do not have to fall temptation to things that you already know are not a great representation of yourself. One, a representation of your family, and of your church family, and mostly of Christ. You do not have to make those decisions just because you feel like you'll never get the opportunity again. Trust me, you're gonna fall victim to sin all throughout your life. Why just choose to just dwell in it and to just dive right in just because you want to prove something to people around you? If I could go back in time and talk to my 16-year-old self, I would definitely choose a lot of things differently. I would choose who I was hanging around a lot differently. I would choose what I did in my free time a lot differently. Yeah, I probably still know how to pop, lock, and drop it only because I like to dance. But I probably wouldn't be doing it in the setting where I would allow for the enemy to have the opportunity to taint my image or to taint my influence before God even like showed me what my purpose was. It was kind of like I was handing the enemy my life on a platter when I was doing that without even realizing that I was. And it's just so funny now that I look back at it and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, I thank you, God, for not exposing me. I thank you, God, for keeping me and protecting me in those moments. I thank you, God, that even when I was at those basement parties, that there was no gun violence, or that you just kept me and my friends like safe. God, I thank you so much that even when I was there, that you still gave me a conviction to where that conviction like just started piling up into where eventually I couldn't disobey it anymore. Like, when you really think hard about like how God has just kept you, oh my gosh, y'all only knew everything. Like, God has really been keeping me. Yeah, so I'm all flustered and stuff. So yeah, when I turned 18, we officially started dating, and like we could be like in public and everything, like together and all that kind of stuff. So throughout the entire time of us dating, we did not have sex. We did not do like a lot of stuff that most couples do because we were trying to do it the right way. So a lot of things that I actually did in high school, I didn't do when I was older, even though like most people start doing more things when they were older. I actually did less when I was older, which is crazy. Like, I know, like, I'm just wrapping my mind around that. I don't know how I lasted, y'all. It's nothing but the grace of God that I lasted from 17, well, actually my whole life, to 23 years old. 23,
basically 24, because I turned 24 like 2 months after we got married. Yeah.
I lasted all that time being a virgin. And like when you're feeling like these intense feelings for someone, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I just want you right now. Like, have your babies. Like, that kind of love, y'all. Like, I just want to like do everything that God intended for marriage. All of it with you, Kristen. That's basically how I felt. But I had to restrain myself because I was a rededicated Christian, and I didn't want to be the stumbling block for him as well, because when he rededicated his life, he was also very serious in his repentance and his confessing. And I didn't want to be the person that basically turned him back to that, and he didn't want to take my purity. So it was just like we agreed on something. So I got engaged, and it was in between the time where I was going to be going off to move to Atlanta to start my master's program. I had got accepted into this executive program where it was only a 1-year master's program for international business. And it was the greatest thing to me because, one, I studied abroad over the summer after I graduated, and I took an international business course, and I went to 5 different countries, 7 different cities in Europe, and it was the best experience of my life. And it really showed me how much I have a heart for people who do not look like me, and people who I can just reach in a different way, and just understanding different cultures. I just fell in love with international culture and international business. So I decided I wanted my master's to be in that. Since I had studied sociology and communication on the front end, it just made sense to just go into international business versus an MBA program, because sociology, you study culture. So it just went hand in hand. So Kristen proposed to me literally the week before I moved to Atlanta. Now, if you know anything about Atlanta, you kind of already know that once you get out there, it's chocolate city. Like, it's just flowing with everything out there. So yeah, Kristen tried to lock me down before I went. I know. No, that's probably not what was going on, but yeah, so we got engaged the week before I moved, and then for the whole entire time that I was in Atlanta, we did a long distance engagement. I moved back home, and then we got married. In between that long distance engagement, that was like the most, the most, I wouldn't say pivotal time of my life, but I learned so much about myself being in Atlanta away from my family. So as I explained to you guys, I lived under a constant influence of everyone around me. So the decisions that I was making was mostly because I cared about perception like so much, and because there was an influence, a hidden influence around me. There was just like this net around me that I couldn't escape back home. So when I moved to Atlanta, it was completely different. I only had my cousin Kim, shout out to you because you let me live with you for a whole year. Best year of my life. Eating up all your food, all that kind of stuff, you know, just great. So I lived there and I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about the things that I thought like on my own and the things that were pressured on me to believe. I learned so much about Christ on my own, because growing up in your dad's church, you learn so much, but you learn more about your parents' God than you do about your own God. So being outside of the protection of my family, outside of that covering, oh my gosh, you guys, I experienced things that I probably would have never experienced if I had stayed home. So I learned God as protector, I learned God as keeper, I learned God as provider, because it wasn't like I had a whole lot of money and I'm not going to ask my parents for money because then it's going to look like I can't take care of things. It was just like I learned God in so many different ways when I was away. So I also learned God as protector in a relationship, because being engaged in long distance, that's so hard on both of you, especially when I moved to Chocolate City. Like, come on now, there's like all these educated men like roaming everywhere. Like everybody's after you, especially when you're a virgin, you look like something, you know. I'm not saying like I'm the greatest looking person, but it's Atlanta. Like, so God was definitely protecting me, because I could have just dwelled in,
like literally dive into all the temptation that was around me.
Now we're in Phoenix. Kristen is a worship pastor at a church. We are like just living out our lives and trying to be accountable to each other every single day, to be a great husband, be a great wife, be a great Christian, be a great friend, accountability partner, and to just keep each other on track. And we're just trying so hard to go deeper into what God wants for us, and to not care about the influences of family, friends, people who don't know us and just are expecting things of us. Even the expectation that comes with the role that you're in. We're just trying to live out our lives exactly how God designed for us to live them out, and to let go of the veil, pretty much, aside from the veil in front of our relationship, because, you know, like I said earlier, don't nobody need to know what's going on over here. So yeah, that is pretty much my testimony, what I'm gonna share now, because I know like we're gonna be doing a video like later on, and like I'll talk about certain details of it, because I kind of skipped over some things, like especially the year while I was away in Atlanta. I definitely skipped over so much that I learned about myself in that year, but that will come in a later video. So I hope that my spew, or like I don't even know what you can call this, I don't know, it could be a testimony video. I hope that this like touches someone who may be in that place of trying to live up to some expectation of you, or to maintain a certain perception of you because of the roles that have come attached to other people. And I really hope that it just really convicts you to really just live out the life that God intended for you to live, and to only be accountable to what his word says and to what Holy Spirit is telling you to do, pretty much. Like the word will lead you nowhere outside of the lines. Like literally, if you just like try to live according to the word, you'll be just fine. I love you guys. If you guys have any questions about my testimony, or you guys want like an explanation as to why I made certain choices, you guys can just like leave it in the comment section below. I'll be sure that I try and give you guys like as much of a detailed response as possible, without revealing the goodies of another video. So yeah, I love you guys. Thanks for watching and tuning in. Be sure to like this video and to subscribe. Yeah, next is Kristen's testimony, and I'm super excited for you guys to hear that, because God did like amazing things in his life. Guys, I promise you don't want to miss that. Peace out.